Today, we are talking about items from throughout history with a dark past, primarily items created by or used by some of the worst people of all time. Would you ever want to own one of these items on the list? If so, how much would you be willing to put up at auction? Let me know down in the comments. I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 terrifying items that belong to evil people in history. And we're starting off the list with the Conjure Chest, which first belonged to a slave owner by the name of Jeremiah Graham. Jeremiah Graham, in anticipation of his sons, tasked a slave named Remus with constructing the chest. He was displeased with Remus's work, so he subjected Remus to a brutal and fatal beating. In response to Remus's unjust death, other enslaved individuals sought revenge, sprinkling dried owl blood inside the chest and placing a curse on it. Jeremiah Graham's son would die during infancy, and this was only the beginning of a pattern of misfortune associated with the chest. A series of owners experienced untimely deaths and hardships while in its possession, 18 to be exact. Anyone who put their clothing inside it seemed to die, putting this chest firmly into the cursed item category. If you are enjoying our channel so far, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. We have awesome videos coming at you on the daily. Number 9. Charles Manson's hair. Yes, locks of his hair have been known to sell online for hundreds of dollars. This guy doesn't really need much introduction, but for those few who do need some context, Charles Manson was a notorious cult leader who orchestrated a series of heinous crimes in the late 60s. In August of '69, Manson directed his followers, often referred to as the Manson family, to carry out a brutal spree in Los Angeles. On his orders, they took the life of actress Sharon Tate and 4 others at her residence. The following night, the Manson family were responsible for the deaths of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca in similarly a gruesome fashion. So these crimes led Manson and several of his followers to being arrested, tried, and convicted. And in 1971, Manson, along with several of his followers, were sentenced to life in prison for their crimes. Over the years, items associated with him have become these kind of macabre collector's items, often selling for significant sums of money online. Again, for instance, locks of his hair, which were reported to have been sold for as much as $800. There's even like half-eaten food that he was eating in jail that's sold online. Crazy. Number 8. German World War II artifacts. This probably doesn't need much explanation. The SS committed heinous acts under the rule of Adolf Hitler, and after the Second World War, countless artifacts were left over, from uniforms and pendants to far more immediately sinister items like ceremonial daggers. On the other end, you have concentration camp uniforms, which serve as these somber relics of the suffering endured by countless innocent people in the regime's detention and extermination camps. Scary artifacts also include the helmets worn by the SS soldiers, symbols of oppression and violence. These helmets were a common sight during the regime's aggressive military campaigns, conquests, and finally, there's the propaganda posters and literature filled with hate-filled messages and indoctrination. Number 7. The Codex Gigas, aka the Devil's Bible. So this massive-sized book is said to have been written with the assistance of Lucifer himself. The Codex Gigas, believed to have been written between 1204 and 1230, changed hands several times before finding its current home in Sweden's National Library in 1768. So this ancient manuscript contains both the Old and New Testaments of the Bible, along with a whole bunch of other information from its era, but it's the inclusion of magic spells and a striking image of the devil that contribute to its reputation as a cursed item. Legend has it that the Codex Gigas was authored by a monk who had broken his vows and was facing a death sentence. In a desperate bid to save his life, though, the monk ended up making a pact with the devil. He had been tasked with a Herculean task to transcribe all human knowledge in a single night. So with the devil's assistance, the monk completed this seemingly impossible task, but the price was his soul. The demonic portrait within the Codex Gigas is said to be the devil's own signature of sorts, and there's other versions where it was possibly drawn by the monk himself as a tribute to the devil. Number 6. The Dybbuk Box. The Dybbuk Box is a supposedly cursed and evil item with a controversial history. It was a wine cabinet that gained notoriety after being listed on eBay in 2003. According to the story, the box was said to be haunted by a malevolent spirit known as a Dybbuk. A Dybbuk is a malicious spirit in Jewish folklore that can possess and control the actions of a living person. The box's haunted history includes reports of strange and unsettling events endured by the people who have owned it. Extreme nightmares, health issues, financial misfortune. The box gained widespread attention when it was purchased by a university museum director, Jason Haxton. He experienced various disturbing incidents and decided to research its history. The story became even more popular by a 2012 horror film, The Possession, which was loosely based on the Dybbuk Box. In at number 5, we have Ed Gein's creations, to which there were many. Born in 1906 in Wisconsin, Gein was a reclusive, disturbed man. He came to the attention of law enforcement in 1957 when he was arrested for the disappearance of a local woman, Bernice Warden. When cops searched Gein's property, they discovered a horrifying collection of artifacts. Gein had fashioned lampshades, belts, and a variety of other items using human skin, and he had preserved various body parts, including heads and organs, in his home. Gein's actions were inspired by this morbid obsession he had with his deceased mother. Anyway, he was found guilty of his disturbing crimes and declared legally insane. Gein spent the rest of his life in a mental institution until his death in 1984. As to where all these disgusting items are now, they burned in a fire. His collection was going to be sold at an auction, but coincidentally, his home burned down in a fire the night before the auction was going to take place. Seems as if someone didn't think it would be right for anyone to profit off of these items, which I 100% agree with. Number 4, Ted Bundy's Volkswagen Beetle. Ted Bundy was a notorious American criminal who confessed to taking the lives of more than 30 women during the 70s. He lured many of his victims by pretending to be injured and asking for help, often approaching them in his nondescript Volkswagen Beetle. This car, a 1968 Volkswagen Beetle, which is now displayed at the Alcatraz East Crime Museum. Bundy's crimes were characterized by extreme brutality, including SA. He would often use his charm to gain the trust of his victims before attacking them. Bundy's spree spanned multiple states, and he managed to evade capture for several years. The Volkswagen Beetle became infamous as Bundy's vehicle of choice during his rampage, served as a key element in his methods, allowing him to approach and subdue his victims. And the car's inconspicuous appearance, at least for the time, made it easier for Bundy to blend in and avoid suspicion. Bundy was finally apprehended, though, and tried and sentenced to death in 1979. Next on the list is the Woman from Lemb statue. Discovered in 1878 on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus and estimated to date back around 3000 BCE, the figurine depicts a seated female figure with her hands on her stomach and is made of limestone. Legend has it that the curse of the Woman of Lemb was unleashed when the statue was first removed from its original location. And according to the lore, those who possess or handle the statue experience a string of unfortunate events, accidents, financial ruin, and even death, earning the statue the ominous nickname Goddess of Death. Every owner of the statue reportedly lost their life, or several family members, within a short time span after acquiring it, and the curse persisted through generations, leading to the last owners leaving the statue to their 2 sons, who, in an attempt to break the cycle of tragedy, eventually donated it to a museum. Even within the museum, though, the curse appeared to still have a bit of an effect, as museum's curator reportedly met an untimely demise soon after receiving it. And at number 2, we have Busby's Stoop chair. In 1702 in North Yorkshire, UK, Thomas Busby was arrested for taking the life of his father-in-law. The two had been running a coin counterfeiting business, and during a heated argument about the direction of their illegal business venture, Busby took things too far, resulting in the other man's death. Busby was put on death row, but his last request was to have a final meal and drink at his favorite pub. Outside of this pub sat the now infamous chair, a chair that Busby would always sit on. On this day, though, while drunk, he cursed the chair out loud, claiming that whoever would sit in it from that day forth would be met with terrible misfortune. And over the years, some strange occurrences took place, including untimely deaths, which some attributed to the supposedly cursed chair. It's now held in Thirsk Museum, hung on the ceiling so that no one can try their hand at sitting in it. Finally, though, we have Pogo the Clown. This is a painting by the notorious serial killer John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy had the facade of a happy, innocent man, entertaining children at parties as his Pogo the Clown character, but behind closed doors, he was nothing like what he seemed. He was a true monster. Between 1972 and 78, Gacy took the lives of 33 boys in the most sickening way possible. He would bury their bodies under his home in Norwood Park Township. He was convicted and sentenced to death in 1980, and while on death row, he took to painting. His most famous work is this painting of his alter ego, Pogo the Clown, dated 1985. I don't know why anyone would want this thing in their home, but the piece recently sold for $12,000 at an art auction in Las Vegas called Dark Shadows. Not only does the context make this thing incredibly unsettling, but it's also a gaudy, horrendous piece of crap. Anyway, ending it there. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.